Can you guys hear me? I'm just checking. Can you all hear me? Hello?
Hi, I can hear you. Is this Dawn?
Yes.
Hi, Dawn. Yeah, I don't have a mic on my computer, so I had to log in through the telephone.
And that's what I did also. I just find that I have less problems when I do that.
Right.
But I don't know.
Jenny, I see you're on.
But I don't know if she can hear me because she was going to call in through her office phone as well.
Her phone is just coming online now.
Oh, good, good. Okay.
I got my cell phone on mute. And I actually have
I hadn't heard from Nancy. I'm hoping there's not a problem.
Yeah. And now you're going to give us the power at some point so we can move the slides.
Yeah, so I made you a presenter, so, but there's no slides up right now, just my slide. I'm going to put up. Jenny?
Hi, yes.
Hi, good, okay. So this is just the welcoming slide I'm going to have on, but I'm going to stop sharing this and put up the PowerPoint and then make sure you guys can manipulate it.
Okay.
And then in the meantime, I'm wondering if I should call Nancy, just because I hadn't heard from her.
Yeah. I guess it can't hurt.
So let me just... I'm putting this, all right, so this is where we're starting.
And I see the arrow down in the lower left-hand part
of
the screen.
Yeah, why don't you try that? You should be able to, there you go.
Yep, it's working.
Okay,
we use Adobe Connect for our webinars as well, so I am familiar with it.
So I may, right now I'm going to check for Nancy's email, phone number.
Okey-dokey. Maybe right on the PowerPoint.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I don't know if she put it on, I can't remember.
All right, so I think I'm going to hang up. I don't know if I could do that. Wait a minute, let me see.
I called into, I had them call me.
Yes, I did too, but I'm wondering if I hang up, how do I get them to call me back?
You may need to log back in.
Yeah, all right, so you guys are in, so I'm going to log out. I'm going to make you both the host so that if I log out, it doesn't shut down.
Sure.
So we're all hosts. Okay,
Host,
so I'm going to log out and then
you
come back in, and I'm going to call Nancy. So I'll be back.
Okie-dokie.
Okay, bye.
Sounds good. How you been, Jenny?
Good. How about you?
Doing pretty well, hanging in there. We're getting, I mean, what a weird winter. February was like, I think the warmest in history. March was more like January. And now we're getting between 4 and 8 inches of snow between tonight and tomorrow.
Wow. Our weather prediction today looked like it had some snow too, but I didn't really believe it. But I'm not sure if we're supposed to get it also. I never pay that much attention to it at this time of year because I just don't think it seems realistic, but Pennsylvania did get a lot of snow in that last one, though we here in Pittsburgh didn't really.
Yeah, so it depends, because this one's more coming across from the west and not like a nor'easter. Like the nor'easters typically miss us, same as you.
Mm-hmm.
One of the advantages of being in Western New York. One of the few advantages of being in Western New York is the nor'easters miss us. And this year we got relatively small amount of snow compared to what we normally get. So I did I turned on my webcam so people can see me, and then when I'm not presenting, there's a way to pause it so I don't have to look like an idiot for an hour at a time.
Yeah, I think I'm just by voice on this one. I called Dawn this morning to figure that out, whether a computer at my desk doesn't have a...
I actually put a shirt and tie on. I have my sweats on below. When we have our staff meetings, which we do through Adobe Connect, and we want to have everyone on camera, I'll put on a nice shirt. And during the summer, I'll have shorts on. During the winter, I'll have sweats on. And everyone laughs,
That's
what
great.
are you wearing?
You work
from... I work from home. Yeah, I work from home.
That's nice.
And then I go into Washington. Yeah, it is. It's really nice. And I go into Washington once or twice a month. So I was there last week, and I'll be there again this week, coming up, and then I won't be back till the middle of May.
That's nice for you.
Yeah, it works out pretty good.
I'm only about a 10-minute commute from my office, so I can't complain too much.
Yeah, that's not too bad. And I, living in Buffalo, I live out in East Aurora, which is in the middle of the country. It's about 20, but it's about maybe 18 miles from the city. When I worked downtown, it took me 20 minutes to get to my office because I'm about a mile from an expressway that goes right into downtown, and Buffalo doesn't have the traffic, that other typical cities would. So it's really, it was not too bad of a gig when I did have to commute into to Buffalo.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Let's allow, oops, Nancy wants to join. Now what happened to that option? Crud. I'm going to get rid of this. Well, we're going to have to wait till Dawn comes back. There was a thing that flashed across my screen that said Nancy would like to join the room.
Yeah, I saw that too.
I can't find where it is.
Yeah, it's not on my screen anymore either. I don't know.
Hello, I'm back.
Is this Dawn?
Yes, but I think, is Nancy there?
No, there was a thing that flashed across our screen really quickly. Nancy Breeden would like to join the room.
Yes, and I did accept it. I did accept it.
Oh, good.
Hi, this is Nancy. Can you hear me?
There. Nancy, can you hear us?
Okay, let me get my IT off the phone because I had him on helping me. Hold on.
So, okay. So, Ron, do you want to keep your video on? It's totally up to you. I told Jenny she didn't have to do a video.
Yeah.
It's up to you guys if you want to.
Well, we'll vote in if it would be better for no one to be on. I can do it either way.
Okay.
I told Jenny I actually have sweatpants on. I put my shirt and tie on. I had my sweatshirt on. I took that off and put my shirt and tie on, but I have my sweatpants on down below. But what we typically, we have our staff meetings through Adobe Connect, so that's what we do. But then when we do webinars, there's actually an option where I can freeze myself, which I just did, so that I don't have to. I can fall asleep when everyone else is going on. But if people would rather not have any of us on, I don't mind not being. Yeah.
Well, I know Jenny doesn't have it, and I didn't turn mine on. I'm not doing a whole lot of talking as you guys are, but it's up to.
Well, I'll take mine off.
Okay, it's up to you. I mean, I can. Okay. So I'm going to remove that pod then, so we don't need that.
Okay. Yeah.
And then.
I am.
Okay, that's fine. So,
Can you hear
Nancy,
me?
are you there? Okay, so I sent you, yes, I can hear you perfectly, thank you. I sent everyone the running PowerPoint, so basically all I did was take each one of your PowerPoints and run them together. And I've made all of you hosts so that you can manipulate the PowerPoint yourself. There's the arrows on the bottom left. So when it comes time for you, you can hit that. If you would like to see your notes, because some of you have notes in your PowerPoint, do you want me to be able to show them? And you guys can see them, but the audience won't be able to. Because I can just make the notes open for you. So some, like, I can't remember which one of you had notes in your PowerPoint, but
So I don't think I
if you
have
want me to keep
notes.
the notes open, I will.
If there are notes in mine, I don't need them.
Okay. And I don't know which one that was. That you, Jenny?
I'm not sure. Maybe somebody had added them to this PowerPoint, but I didn't, so I don't need them.
Oh, okay.
This is Nancy. I don't have them.
Let's see.
I don't have them.
Oh, they are. Fine. Okay, because it does look, well, whatever. That's fine. I'm going to remove the notes then. I'm going to just have it be, I'll get rid of that box if we don't need it. Okay. So if there are people joining us who can't ask their question through the chat box, I have the ability to put a phone number in here in the chat box for them to call so that they can ask the question that way. So we'll wait and see what happens. Or actually, I may just put it up anyway, just so that in case someone needs it. And I think I had told Jenny that there are 43 people registered. So I'm hoping we get at least half of those people on. It's hard. Sometimes people register and then forget, or when we send email out, but you never know. And then I'm also, there is an evaluation that once they exit out of Adobe, they'll get routed to an evaluation, and I can share those results with you all when I tally them afterwards.
That'd be great. And then a hint for using this platform: when you're not speaking, it's better to mute your line, give us feedback.
Yeah, and unfortunately, sometimes when people join in, they don't do that. So if I hear a lot of background noise, I will ask them to mute their lines. Once we started using this call-in number where they call you back, it seems to be much better. It used to be horrible where you could hear dogs barking in the background. At one point, we had someone who was at work and put us on hold, and we heard music.
Oh, yeah.
So,
the whole conference was on hold, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So hopefully we won't have any of that. Can you mute everyone's line but the presenters or hosts? I think I can. I'm going to see audio. And by the way, I am going to be recording this.
Good.
To mute, do we hit *6? Do you want us to try doing that?
Well, I'm using my cell, so I just hit the mute on my phone, but I think that is the *6.
Yeah, and I just have my mute on my phone that I use.
So
But
this is
yeah,
Nancy.
Starface is the normal mute option.
Yeah,
And then you
this
do
is Nancy, and I'm using a headset instead of calling in, so I'm assuming I just use the mute my microphone button on the top of the screen. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to mute myself and say something. Can you?
Okay. Yes, we can.
Go ahead. Say something again, Nancy. Not now.
Okay, so that worked.
We can't hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Good.
Okay. Yeah, I know. That was the tricky part.
Yeah.
You better be able to unmute too. I'm going to step away from my desk just for a minute. I'll be right back.
Sure. So we have in order, Ron's going to start, then Nancy, and then Jenny. And I'll take some brief questions. I'll ask them if they have any questions in between each one of you, just a couple. And then we'll also ask at the end if anyone has questions. And then Ron had given me some information. I made a slide where on Disability Rights Network National, on their website, there's a map where you can click on whatever state you work in and get the appropriate agency. So I'm going to pull that slide up at the end so they can find out how they can find.
This is Nancy. You said that you were going to be doing introductions at the beginning. Are you also going to be doing transition introductions throughout the presentation? So as we move from one person to the other?
Yeah, so what in the beginning, I'll just say that we have 3 presenters. I'll mention your names. But then as we get to your PowerPoint, I'll say, I guess I'll then individually introduce you, and then you can begin. And then if there's anything, if you mention a resource or something that I'll reiterate it in the chat box. If you mention a website, whatever it is that you may mention, I'll try to put it in the chat box as well as we're moving along. So I'm going to stop sharing this, and I'm going to put the welcoming. So I'm going to wait a couple minutes, and then because I do see that someone's trying to get in, so I'm going to start. You know what? If you want to put yourself on mute for just a minute, I'm going to start allowing people to come in, or whatever you want to do.
No, do it. It's already 11:59. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I'm going to let them in. Well, there's only one, but. Good afternoon. We will begin shortly. We're just waiting a couple more minutes to allow more people to enter, and then it will begin. Okay, so we're going to begin. I don't want to wait much longer. We do have a full schedule. My name is Dawn Monaco, and I am from SPAN, the Statewide Parent Advocacy Network. Welcome. Welcome to our Lunchtime Learning webinar, which is called Community Resources Disability Rights Network. This particular webinar series is funded through our Reach for Transition grant, which is through the Rehabilitation Services Administration. And we welcome everyone. So today we are talking about Disability Rights Network. We have someone here from the national level, Ron Hager. He is the staff attorney at the National Disability Rights Network. We also have Nancy Bryden from Vermont, and we'll meet her a little later on. And we have Jenny Hergenmetter also. She's from Pennsylvania, from Disability Rights Pennsylvania. So I'm just going to pull the PowerPoint up and we will begin. So once again, I'm going to welcome Ron Hager, the Senior Staff Attorney from National Disability Rights Network. Welcome, Ron.
Thank you, Dawn, and welcome to everyone else that's on the call here today. And it's a pleasure for me to be here and speaking with you. One of the things that NDRN is encouraging at the national level is that the protection and advocacy programs in each state work with their parent training and information centers. And so this is a great opportunity for us to share who we are and what we do. And so without further ado, I'll start our discussion. And what we're planning on doing today is having me talk about the national network. And then, as Dawn said, we'll have a representative from Vermont and Pennsylvania to talk about what they're doing in their specific states. So you can get kind of the bigger picture and then some examples of how the network's actually operating in 2 states in your service area. And NDRN is a nonprofit membership organization. So we are a trade organization. One of our missions is to support our network, making sure that they get funding and making sure that the network's needs are being met. We also are federally funded to provide technical assistance and training to the protection and advocacy programs across the country. So we have 2 hats that we wear. And we have 2 different types of basically structures, the protection and advocacy programs and the client assistance programs. The client assistance programs are specifically charged with representing people in questions and disputes that they might have with the vocational rehabilitation system in each state. Many of the protection and advocacy agencies also house the client assistance program. So it's one-stop shopping. Any kind of protection advocacy or client assistance program question you might have, you just go right to the same entity. But there are a number of states where the CAP grant is in a different program, and Pennsylvania is specifically one of those states. So the CAP is separate from the P&A in Pennsylvania. And we serve a variety of people with different types of disabilities. Basically, any disability that anyone has is someone that we would, in our network, would work with. NDRN itself does not provide any individual services to people. Our target is to support the P&A and CAP program in each state. And our vision as a network is to see a society where people with disabilities have equality of opportunity and are able to fully participate in community life by exercising their own choice and self-determination. And our mission is to promote the integrity and capacity of the P&A CAP national network, and also to enact vigorously enforce laws protecting people with disabilities across the country, and then support the missions of our state members as well. So the NDRN system, the network, we are charged with investigating reports of abuse and neglect, seeking systemic change, advocating for basic rights, and ensuring the accountability of the systems that serve people with disabilities, including juvenile and criminal justice systems. and in every other area of work, employment, housing, education, transportation. And we are located in every state and territory, as well as there's a separate Native American protection and advocacy program in the Four Corners region of the country, serving the Navajo and Hopi tribes. And they also now have a client assistance program grant with the Native American PNA. There are many of the PNAs do represent and serve people with disabilities, Indians with disabilities, but there's a separate specifically funded program for the Four Corners region of the country. The history of the PNA systems began with a series of television broadcasts by Geraldo Rivera. At the time, his name was Jerry Rivers, and he uncovered horrendous conditions in Willowbrook, a state institution on Staten Island. And, you know, he was actually snuck in by a staff person with a camera. And so they really, literally went around the institution filming people lying in squalor. It was just horrendous. I mean, it got national attention. Bobby Kennedy spoke very, 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 very eloquently about how horrendous this was. So the actual uncovering of all this was in the late 60s. And then Senator Jacob Javits from New York was kind of the one that spearheaded getting a federal statute passed to protect people with disabilities. And the focus from the very beginning was primarily on preventing abuse and neglect for people that are in institutional settings. And that still is a primary mission for the PNA programs, although we do also serve people with disabilities in the community. A strong part of what we do has to continue to be addressing abuse and neglect in institutional settings. And we have been giving an incredibly broad grant of authority. This is a quote from the statute. We have the authority to pursue legal, administrative, and other appropriate remedies. So basically any kind of issue, any kind of remedy, we have the authority to pursue in individual and group cases. We have the ability to respond to basically any issue regarding a person with a disability. However, we don't have the resources to fully meet the need of every person that might call us. So the PNA agencies are required to create a set of priorities governing the types of cases and issues that they will take. So one of the things that you'll need to do is to find out, you know, what does your PNA do in your state? What are their priorities? What are their emphases? What are the primary things that they do? The other thing that's unique to us is we have the right to access people with disabilities, records, and facilities. A protection and advocacy staff person can just walk into an institution and say, I want to look around and see what's going on and talk to the people and see how they're being treated. And an institution, or facility is the word, includes both, you know, typical 24-hour institutions, but also day programs. The PNA programs have the authority to walk right into a school and just see what's happening in that school. They can go into the basement and see, is there a locked seclusion room in the basement of this school? So it's a really broad grant of authority, unique to any other program. Other than the federal government, we have, you know, the next kind of most authority. And basic principles of our system are, it's client directed. And you have to remember as a parent training center that the client is the person with a disability, not the parent. So our primary focus is going to be, what does the person with a disability want? We do have it is a legally based system. We are all considered law offices, so when you call the office, it's actually like calling a, you know, Dewey, Cheatham and Howell law firm. We act independently. There are a number of programs that are located within state government, although that number is dwindling. But even if it is in state government, it still must be an independent office. Connecticut and New York, well, New York has been an independent nonprofit agency for a few years now. Connecticut is just shifting in the next several months from a Connecticut state agency to a nonprofit. The types of remedies that we can pursue are soup to nuts. Information referral, training, self-advocacy, counseling and advice, negotiation, administrative actions, like, you know, going to IEP meetings or due process hearings, or for VR clients, pursuing different remedies for VR clients, individual litigation, monitoring and investigations, interaction with policy members, class actions, legislative advocacy. So as we look at overlap between the PTI programs and the P&As, a number of the things that the P&As do, the P&As do, the parent training centers also do. So we really encourage the PTIs and the P&As to work together and sharing resources, sharing referrals, trying to come up with a system where there's not a lot of overlap in services that are being provided. And with that, I'm done. Any questions?
If you have questions, you can type them in the chat box, or if you have the ability to put them through your microphone, you can do that as well. And then we will also be taking questions at the end. So I can just give a minute to see if anybody has any questions for Ron. I don't see anyone typing, Ron, so maybe we'll move on.
Sounds good.
Okay, so next we will invite Nancy Bryden, from the, who is the Director of Disability Law Project.
I am.
Vermont,
Can you hear me?
Legal Aid. And Nancy, are you there? Yes, we can.
Sure. Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Ron. I know we couldn't do the
agency.
work we do without the support of the National Disability Rights Center, so they do great stuff. So I'm the director of the Disability Law Project at Vermont Legal Aid. We're a part of the protection and advocacy system in Vermont. We share the work here in Vermont with Disability Rights Vermont, which is the designated protection and advocacy center in Vermont. So we work with them and divide the legal work up. We are also, the Disability Law Project is also home to the Client Assistance Program in Vermont. So we have a little bit of responsibility across the board. What we do is we provide direct legal representation for individuals with disabilities and their families in legal issues related to their disability. We also engage in systems advocacy to improve the lives of Vermonters living with a disability. We are staffed with 4 attorneys and 2 paralegals, and we are based in Vermont Legal Aid offices statewide. So Ron showed you a slide that showed the range of advocacy that P&As engage in, and this is somewhat of a restatement of that. We do information and referral, provide counsel and advice, and provide full legal representation to families and individuals. On the systems level, we interact with policymakers, we respond to requests for information from legislators, comment on proposed regulations, and offer training. In Vermont, because we're such a small state, the systems advocacy is a really important part of the work that we do. We have a lot of access to our policymakers, so we can accomplish a lot through influencing policy as it's being developed rather than having to respond to bad policy that's been made. In these systems advocacy activities, we partner a lot with our Parent Information Center, which is known as the Vermont Family Network. We work very closely with the Vermont Family Network on policy development, educating legislators, commenting on regulations. We also coordinate with the Green Mountain Self-Advocates, which is our self-advocacy organization in Vermont. So I mentioned that the Disability Law Project is part of Vermont Legal Aid, and on this screen I'm just showing you what the other projects are. What I haven't shown there is the Client Assistance Program is also part of Vermont Legal Aid. We have a central intake system at Vermont Legal Aid, so callers, when they call, will speak with an attorney who screens their case and makes a couple of determinations. One, whether there is a project within Vermont Legal Aid that can handle that caller's legal problem, whether it's the legal problem falls within the priorities of any of the legal aid projects, and if not, then that caller is provided with some just brief service information. They may be provided with a a packet of documents that they can use to advocate for themselves. They may be referred to another agency who may be able to help them. So that's our basic intake process. One of the things that's really helpful for us in being effective in Vermont is being housed within Vermont Legal Aid, because we coordinate with attorneys from all of the other projects on systems issues. For example, when there's comments on Medicaid regulations that may affect populations that are served by each of these projects, we coordinate with attorneys from those projects to comment. Or in litigation, a number of years ago, we filed an action against the state for failing to have a good system that protected vulnerable adults from abuse and neglect. So we have a lot of resources to draw on, and that's a real benefit from being a part of Vermont Legal Aid. These are our priority areas, and they seem very broad. They are. We tend to, because again, we're a small population state, we want to keep ourselves open to being able to take what cases come in. So these are our areas, and I'm going to, the next several slides, I'm going to review what we do within each of these priority areas. But as you can see, it's a broad range of priorities. Our priorities are developed through public input. We go through a pretty rigorous public input process each year, and also determined by the kind of calls that we're getting at our central screening location. And so if we know that there are a lot of calls coming in, say, about transportation, Medicaid transportation, that information gets sent back to us in the individual projects, and we know that we need to be paying attention and looking at those areas, at that particular issue. We represented over 500 people in individual cases last year, and that's not information and referral, that was full representation. And in addition, there were about 618 information and referral cases. So in the area of access to health care, we represent individuals who are seeking access to needed health care and long-term care when the issue is the disability, duration of services, covered services, the adequacy of the notice that the individual has received that denies, reduces, or terminates their health care. We have a big focus on early implementation of early periodic screening, diagnosis, and treatment, access to mental health services for children and youth, and discharge planning for children and youth that are leaving residential placements. So this representation in this area might be, or frequently is, representing in a fair hearing of termination or reduction in healthcare services. We also do systems advocacy, as I mentioned earlier, commenting on regulations and that sort of thing. Special education is we get a lot of calls on special education, and we have had to prioritize what we can do in these kinds of cases. So our priority areas are essentially kids that are out of school, so they have not been, ooh, that's not written right, that are unlawfully suspended or expelled from their educational program or have been unlawfully disciplined. We also have a focus on students with disabilities receiving appropriate transition from school to employment and independent living, and where we have the resources, just looking at trying to ensure that students are identified, evaluated, and receive a free and appropriate public education. We have priorities in access to services in the least restrictive setting, access to developmental services, and advocacy to ensure people with intellectual and developmental disabilities do not have unnecessarily restrictive guardianships. Vermont is not so unique anymore, but we do not have any institutions for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So we don't spend any time going into facilities or institutions and trying to get people out, with the exception of sometimes there are people who are inappropriately placed in nursing homes. So we do that advocacy, but we're kind of trying to push the limits on what least restrictive and most integrated settings means when most people are living in the community. We also do have a priority for public benefits for kids who are receiving SSI benefits to help them preserve those benefits because, as you probably know, having, at least in Vermont, having SSI gives you access to Medicaid. So it's really important for those kids to maintain their SSI so they can maintain Medicaid eligibility. We do advocacy to ensure that people with disabilities receive needed accommodations and are not discriminated against in housing. We do advocacy under all areas of the Americans with Disabilities Act. So that includes access to government services and programs, advocacy to assure access to businesses open to the public, and ensure that people with disabilities aren't discriminated against in employment. We also provide advocacy to ensure that adults and children with disabilities, wherever they're living, are free from abuse, neglect, or rights violations. We provide advocacy to ensure that Vermonters have access to medically necessary assistive technology and durable medical equipment. And we do advocacy to assure that victims of crime with disabilities are able to fully participate in legal proceedings related to their victimization. And this includes getting accommodations in court and related legal proceedings. So somebody may need an accommodation in a deposition so that they can understand the process. We may need to protect the victim's medical records. We may need to do advocacy around a person losing housing due to their victimization. And we assist victims in accessing victim compensation funds. Under our CAP program, the Client Assistance Program, we do advocacy for individuals who are seeking to access or who are receiving vocational rehabilitation services. That also includes, most of the clients are receiving or seeking access to VR services, but it also includes individuals who are complaining about the services they're receiving from the independent living organization in the state and a number of other entities that are funded under the Rehabilitation Act. And finally, we do a lot of outreach and training to increase awareness and knowledge of the civil rights and legal rights of people with disabilities. Last year, we trained approximately 174 people in Vermont. And this is just a screen on how people can contact us. As I mentioned, we have a central intake number, or they can go to Vermont Legal Aid's website, or just visit any Vermont Legal Aid office in the area where they live. And that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Nancy. So last but not least, we have Jenny Hergenreder, who is a staff attorney at Disability Rights Pennsylvania. Welcome, Jenny.
Hi,
I'm sorry,
thank
Jenny,
you.
before we begin, let me just ask, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure, does anyone have any questions for Nancy? And we will open it up for more questions at the end. But if you have a question for Nancy now, you can go ahead and type it in the chat box or ask it through your phone line. Okay, I don't see anyone typing, so why don't we go ahead? Sorry, Jenny, go ahead.
No problem. Hi, my name is Jenny Hergenreder. I'm a staff attorney at Disability Rights Pennsylvania, and I'm going to give an overview of what we do here in Pennsylvania. Similar to what Nancy described, we are the state of Pennsylnia's protection and advocacy organization. We're unlike the Vermont system that Nancy described in the way that both our attorneys and advocates are housed under the same organization here. So we may operate a little differently in that way. We have offices in 3 areas of the state: Harrisburg, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh. And we also have some remote staff located outside of those offices, and importantly, we have people who are staff who's located at each of the state-run centers that are still here in Pennsylvania. As I said, we're a nonprofit corporation. We're designated as the federally mandated organization to advance and protect the civil rights of adults and children with disabilities. And our goal is to work with people with disabilities and their families to ensure that they have the right to live their life in the community with the services that they need, to receive a full and inclusive education when they're school age, to live free from discrimination, abuse, and neglect, and to have control and self-determination over their lives and the services that they need. This is our mission statement, which pretty much just reiterates what I said. Our vision statement is a commonwealth where people of all abilities are equal and free. We operate several federally funded P&A programs, and I listed them out here so that people have an idea of the various areas of work that we do, and these are our federal funding streams, essentially. So what do we actually do? Similar, again, to what Nancy described with the Vermont system, we provide informational publications that people can access through our website. We don't have all of our publications on our website. We have a number that we house internally and send out to people after we have spoken to them, or if they have come in seeking advice, or if we are presenting at a conference or doing some type of outreach event. We'll often take a number of our publications and have them sitting out for people to take. They're intended to be reader-friendly and easy to digest as much as we can make them, so that people can read them and have a basic understanding of their rights and of the process they need to go through to advocate for themselves or for someone else. And like I said, some of those are available on our website if any of you have interest in taking a look. We provide individualized advice and advocacy from both advocates and attorneys in our office. We have what we refer to as an intake line, which is a phone number that anyone can call about really any disability-related issue for a person in Pennsylvania. And whatever the question is, it gets passed along to the advocate or attorney in our office who's best able to answer it and provide the information and advice that the person needs. In some of those cases, all we end up doing is providing over the phone information and advice and resources for the person to be able to solve their problem or take at least the next steps in solving their problem, and then they can call us again if they hit a stumbling block or can't actually get the resolution that they need on their issue. And in some cases, we take on the case and provide either direct advocacy or direct legal representation to the person, depending on the problem that they're having. And we also, because we can't take on every case that comes to us, we also prioritize in various areas what issues we're going to take and what cases we're going to provide legal representation on. We have priorities that are set by our board of directors annually with some input from staff, and those are posted on our website. And so we sort of screen those intake calls when we first get them, and they may get sort of flagged as a potential legal issue if it's something that falls within our priority, and then the attorney or advocate handling the case also looks carefully at the notes and talks to the person who's called us at length to figure out whether it's something that we want to handle by giving information and advice and resources, or if it's something that we want to take on and have the person send us more information and records and things like that to determine if we can get involved in the case. To put it as simply as I can, we try to take cases where we think that the legal issue involved will result in some sort of broader impact for more people with disabilities than just the one person involved. Not that an individual's issue is not important, but we try to find the cases where when we solve an issue or a problem for one person, we may be solving a bigger, more systemic problem that's affecting a lot of other people. You know, and there are certainly rare cases that come in that may not have huge systemic impact, but we will sometimes still work on those because of the importance of the legal issue or the ability to make some change in legal precedent. I'm not sure if it's just on my screen or if this is on others as well, but I'm not sure if I'm seeing the slide I'm not seeing the slide that I was actually working on.
What
Yeah,
slide
I don't,
are you
Nancy,
on now?
I mean,
I'm
yeah,
moving
this is
them.
Dawn.
I-
Yeah, I
We're
don't
looking
see
at the
you
Vermont.
move-
Yeah, it's on the Vermont one. I had moved it to the Pennsylvania slides and I was going through them, but now I'm back at the Vermont slides for some reason. Not sure how that happened.
Can you move the slide? Can you move it, Jen?
No, when I click the arrow button, oh wait, okay, now it's allowing me to move it. Are other people seeing that also?
No.
No, it's
Huh.
I'm moving my slides on my screen, and I don't think anyone else is seeing it.
Oh,
Now we're
there it
doing
goes.
There we go.
Okay, I hit a sync button at the bottom,
Okay.
so maybe that
That was
is
what we
something. I'm
needed.
going to jump forward.
All right, good. So we might be better now. Okay, good.
Okay. So this slide is just dealing with the point that anyone who calls our intake system, we will serve. We use a language line that allows us to communicate with people who speak other languages, and we retain certified sign language interpreters if we have someone who calls us who's deaf. So really anyone can and should feel like they can call us and they will be able to communicate with someone here to get the information that they need. In addition to offering the intake line and process that I described, we also will respond to reports of abuse and neglect when they come in, and those sometimes come in through intake and sometimes come in through other types of reports that we get from some of the state centers. We will actually, as Ron said, we're able to go to schools, to institutions, to state-run delinquency centers, and when we receive a report that a person with a disability there or multiple people with disabilities are being subject to abuse or neglect, including the use of unlawful restraints, unlawful seclusion, things like that, we are able to actually go on site and do an investigation, see the place, speak to people and interview them about what's occurring there, so that we can make sure that people are protected, and then we take the follow-up steps that we need to take to make sure problems are fixed when we find them. Sorry, jumping back. We also monitor laws that are being passed to ensure that the rights of individuals with disabilities are protected. Do a lot of advocacy in that area. I think I discussed this slide already. I'm sorry, I got a little lost in the slides there with the jumping around. As I said, you can access our priorities on our website along with a number of publications. This is our intake line, if anyone has contacts in Pennsylvania. I wanted to also mention that we work closely with our Parent Training and Information Center here, which in Pennsylvania is the Peel Center. And they work primarily in the area of education in Pennsylvania, mostly having a lot of parents call for assistance understanding their rights related to the special education system for their child. They have a number of advocates at the Appeal Center who take those calls and will frequently get in touch with us if they find a legal problem or think that a parent needs help beyond what they can provide in terms of information and advocacy. We've initiated a number of cases, special ed due process hearings, in cases that have been passed along to us from the Appeal Center. They're pretty good at spotting those important legal issues that may have broad impact for kids. So they frequently will contact us for help or assistance or to ask us to just take on a case. We have a team of attorneys here who focus in the area of special education and take on cases that require a due process hearing. So we do a lot of that work here, in addition to doing, obviously, work on behalf of adults with disabilities as well. And that's about it for me.
Wonderful, thank you. Does anyone have questions for any of the presenters today? I actually have a question. Jenny, so you said that you provide attorneys that can go to due process and such cases. Is there a waiting list for those type of services? How does that work for families?
No, there's no waiting list for that. It's the same process as any other case. We get a lot of intake calls from parents that are, they're calling because they're having a problem with their school district, some type of disagreement with their district over the services that are being provided for their child, or their child has gotten into trouble and is being suspended or expelled for something that is, disability-related behavior, things like that. We get a number of calls. I wish I had more numbers for you, but it's in the hundreds, if not thousands,
I
a
can
year.
imagine. Yeah.
Of calls in that area, and we have a number of attorneys here who take those calls, as well as a paralegal, and it's, we give everyone who calls us individualized advice and attention, and we'll often review documents for parents to make sure that we're able to give them careful advice about how to handle their situation and what approach they can take with their school district. Typically, going back to the district and making points about their legal rights once they've talked to us and understand what those rights are. But often, if it's a situation where the parent has already reached a point where they know their rights and they've tried to advocate, and their district is still making a decision or pushing something that we believe is legally incorrect, we take those cases on. You're asking about a waiting list and who is able to get these services. I imagine we really base it off of what the legal issue is. What is the issue in dispute? What is the parent seeking to have happen that the school is saying no to? Is it something that the child is legally entitled to that the school shouldn't be denying? And would this be an opportunity to make sure we have a good case on this issue? So anything that could make good case law, and especially if it's something where the case law might affect many students, which in most cases it would, that we try to find somebody here that can do it. Like I said, we have about 5 attorneys here that do process hearings. So if one of us has too full of a caseload, it may get bumped to somebody else who has more time in their schedule. So that's just sort of how we handle them. We try to take anything that comes to us that is a case that would that fits within our priorities. One of our priorities, an area that we focus on a lot, is parents who want to have their child educated in an inclusive environment, or in their least restrictive environment as the law requires. And a school is trying to either place the child in a more restrictive setting or is not providing the services that the child needs to be successfully included, so the child is not doing well and is at risk of being pushed to a more segregated classroom or setting. Those cases we prioritize and will take on almost any case that comes to us that's an LRE issue, an inclusion issue. We also prioritize cases involving kids that are transition age, so that starts at 14 in Pennsylvania, but typically older kids that are nearing the end of high school, sometimes continuing on through the age of 21, but needing to sort of focus their educational services in the area of transition skills and making sure that they're prepared for life after high school. You know, Pennsylvania is, I imagine, like some other states, since these are rather new provisions in the IDEA, is still struggling to get up to speed on what it really needs to do for transition age students. And so there's a lot of litigation in that area, and we've been focusing on a lot of cases that or trying to make sure that the unique needs of those students are being met, and at the same time in as inclusive settings as possible for transition age students. So those are just two examples of how we sort of prioritize cases.
So Nicole has a question for you all, whoever would like to answer. She says, I'm seeking suggestions on advocacy. I work for the PTI in Michigan, and our agencies like these are very limited. Suggestions on how to get expanded support forbids our PTI from working with our P&A, for instance. Are you familiar with that, Ron?
I am familiar with that. Mark McWilliams from the Michigan Protection Advocacy Program mentioned this to me a few years ago, I believe. There had been a huge collaboration between the PTI and the P&A for many years, and then I think because it was being so successful, the Department of Education prohibits the PTI from working with the P&A. Now,
oh, wow.
I'm assuming that the PTI is getting some state funding as well as the federal funding, because if the PTI was only getting federal funds, what do they care? They could just go ahead and do it. But if the PTI is getting some state funds, then they have to pay attention to what the state is telling them. I don't know if there's anything the P&A can do about it. It's probably going to have to be something that the PTI does, but I would encourage you maybe to sit down with Mark again and see if there's any strategic things that could be done. Potentially we could intervene at the federal level, although now with the change of administration we really aren't sure how that's going to go. Ruth Ryder is still the deputy. She's the deputy director of OSEP, the acting assistant, the acting director of OSEP, and the acting assistant secretary for Office of Special Education and Rehabilitation Services. And we do have a very good relationship with her. So we do meet with her on a regular basis, so we could put that on the list. But what happened, ironically, is the P&A was filing state complaints against school districts in Michigan, and the state education department was not doing a very good job of handling these complaints. So we met with OSEP, and OSEP did go out and tell the state, you've got to do a better job on these state complaints. And so then things kind of went all over the place. So that would be one. If you can't get it resolved from the state level, that would be one alternative, because the P&As by statute are the PTIs are specifically mentioned in our statute about who we're supposed to collaborate with, and in the PTI statute it doesn't really specifically mention the P&A, but you are, as PTIs, mandated to collaborate with other entities, and we spent a whole host of time with OSEP doing a whole series of trainings and a handbook and everything on collaboration between the P&As and PTI. So if it can't get resolved, I'm just thinking of this now, Nicole, if it can't get resolved at the state level, then maybe we can do something at OSEP to see about, stopping this.
Nicole, I hope that helps. I'm sorry to hear that. That's tough.
And do we have the slide with all of the
Yes, I'll
the
put that up
NDRN
right now.
website?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I also just wanted to mention, this is Jenny, to Nicole, that Ron's suggestion is the most important in terms of how to open up direct communication between you and the P&A in Michigan. But if they have an intake line similar to what we have, if you're working with a parent who needs legal advocacy or representation, I imagine you already do this, but I just wanted to say there shouldn't be anything that prevents you from directly referring a person who needs assistance to the P&A, directly to the P&A. If you're feeling
right.
like you need more support.
Instead of collaborating, you treat it as a separate entity and just refer them there.
Yeah.
So if you're in a particular state and you don't know who to reach out to, Ron, this is your website, correct?
Yes, this is the NDRN website. It's the home page, and I think it may actually not be the home page, but you see a little map in the upper right-hand corner. If you click on that map, and that is on the home page, you get a menu to the right, the second slide, that lists the state, and you click on that state, and it'll give you the contact information for the P&A and CAP program in that state. It'll say whether it has the CAP separately or if it's at the same P&A program. And we have two different websites. This is a public website that anyone can access, and then we have a private website that we do use for our technical assistance that only the P&A and CAP programs have access to. But we do put up a fair amount of stuff on public policy, on latest news issues and things like that on the public page.
Wonderful. So if you're not sure where to go onto this website and you'll find your state, and then the agencies will be listed there. Do we have any other questions for our presenters? I did want to mention, I typed it in, but in case you didn't see it, under the Files section, we have a copy of the PowerPoint for you to refer to, and we also have this particular slide with the website there as well. This webinar was recorded, and it will be housed on the Reach for Transition program page of the Statewide Parent Advocacy Network's website, spannj.org. So you can find that. It'll be up in a few days. I have actually a couple of webinars I'm going to be loading up, so I will be doing that shortly. You'll be able to access. That's our website, to access them. So it doesn't seem like we have any questions. Is there anything else that you all would like to share before we say goodbye? I want to thank Ron Hager, who's the senior staff at National Disability Rights Network. Thank you so much. We work a lot with Ron. He's always been a great collaborator with us. Nancy Bryden, thank you so much, for the director of the Disability Law Project at Vermont Legal Aid. And Jenny Hergenreder, who's a staff attorney at Disability Rights Pennsylvania. I did want to mention that we collaborated with our region PTIs and reached out to them to find Nancy and Jenny. They were referred to us from our PTIs in Vermont, the Vermont Family Network, and also Peel in Pennsylvania. They were the ones that gave us Nancy and Jenny's names. We collaborate with them on a regular basis. So it looks like we don't have any questions. I'm going to keep this open so people can download or upload the files that are there. But, oh, and I do want to mention that when you exit out of this Adobe page, you'll be directed to an evaluation. Please take the time to fill that out for us. That helps us to develop our further webinars and helps guide us on topics and to make sure that we're meeting all of your needs. So please do so for us. So Ron, Nancy, and Jenny, thank you so much for joining us and for helping us out today. We appreciate it. Hopefully
Thank
we'll
you
be
for
able to
hosting this.
collaborate future projects.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.